What is going on, everybody? So I'm back today to talk about a documentary series. The reason I'm talking about this series, I watched all of the other series that this director has put out, which Conversations with a Killer has now done Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, and now Jeffrey Dahmer. And I know that there's been a lot going around about Jeffrey Dahmer with the television show that was released recently, and I know that it's been picked up for like this whole series about killers, and I thought that it would be really interesting to talk about today, and so I'm looking forward to getting into it when discussing the review. Conversations with a Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer Tapes, is directed by Joe Berlinger. Serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer confesses to his gruesome crimes in unguarded interviews, offering an unsettling view into the disturbed mind. So first, before I get into talking about the subject matter of the documentary, I just want to quickly talk about the sort of controversy and the things that have been going around about television shows about serial killers. How do victims feel in this situation, or the families of victims in these types of situations? And I do think that that opens up a well of interesting dialogue that people can have. But if you want my 2 cents on it, which I'm just a guy, but I'll just say my 2 cents on it, I think that it is important, especially throughout history, to learn from history and to not repeat history. And I feel like as a country, we are horrible about consistently repeating history over and over and over again, to where it's like we never learn from the same dumb shit that we do over and over again. And these serial killers existed mostly in a period of time where technology wasn't really great. It was much more difficult to find people because of the lack of DNA evidence and the way that we were able to track people down. And I think there is a validity to discussing, the sensitivity to the families and making sure that the families are, respected, because it's going to be difficult for them to relive this. And I totally 100% understand that. I think that, looking at this from more of an educational perspective and less of like, I'm enjoying myself learning about a freak. It's really all about intent, and I think art like this will continue to exist. And I think it's fine to exist. I haven't seen the Dahmer television series, but I would be interested to see how it is perceived. If it's much more of just like we're taking this real serial killer and looking at it through the perspective of how he kills people, and that's all it is, or if it's much more from the perspective of the victims and the horrors that they experience. Because I remember seeing the film My Friend Dahmer when it was released, and that was before Jeffrey Dahmer started killing people, the source material was. And it was much more of a glimpse into his psyche and to the little things in his life that kind of like pushed him over the edge. Like, he was always capable of being a madman, but the things in his life that sort of drove him over the edge. And I thought that was fascinating. But I understand, the complex discussions that exist about this. But I do think art like this will always exist. And I think that these documentaries are interesting, especially the director who handles them, because I feel like in every case of all 3 of the documentary series I've watched that he has created, he's very sensitive to the family members and very sensitive to making sure that their stories are heard, and that it's not just like we're glorifying this guy for 2 episodes. And I think that there's a very fine line in how to approach that situation. So in this, obviously, you're getting tapes from Jeffrey Dahmer of him confessing to these things, discussions with him that had never been heard before, but you're also getting the perspective of the people who lived around him, of people in the community that were experiencing these heinous acts. And I feel like a lot of times what is looked over, which is why I'm really glad that this documentary looked into this, is how many people that were murdered that were LGBTQ community members that were also people of color. And I think that that is more glossed over than anything else. And they actually interview people that were regular attendees at gay bars in Wisconsin in this time period, and they do a lot of discussion talking to these people and sort of airing out like how this was during like the AIDS crisis, and the gay community was trying to be really close and supportive of one another, and how difficult this was because the police didn't take it seriously. No one was really looking out because they didn't treat gay people with the same respect that they did anyone else. And so I think that that's a really cool thing, that they were able to spend so much of the documentary talking about the negative effects on people of color and people of color in the queer community, because that is like, marginalized marginalized groups of people already have a hard enough time, but being sort of double bucketed into two different marginalized groups of people made it even more difficult for these crimes to be stopped, where if it was a whole bunch of white guys getting killed, it probably would have been taken a lot more seriously. And so I thought that that was great. They spent so much time doing that. And I think what we can learn from these types of things is the signs to look out for, because every single time it's like we would never guess that it's this person. We would never think that it was this person. And I listened to the podcast Crime Junkie, and I think they really do a good job of like talking about, you know, keeping your eyes open and like listening for different signals. And obviously technology now is so much better. I read an article recently about how difficult it would be to be a serial killer in today's society because of just how great technology is. And it's great that we have that in law enforcement, but you also look at things like, yes, Jeffrey Dahmer is a lunatic. Yes, Jeffrey Dahmer was capable of being a monster, but like with mental health help and with more access to mental health help, could we have suppressed it or got him in a place that he could not have harmed people earlier if we would have had the right people looking into him early on and thinking about like mental health checks and the importance of mental health in society? And that's a really interesting thing, because that's not to defeat the matter of like the fact that he was a sociopath incapable of feeling, but if, you know, mental health help was more accessible and like even like regular checkups with like kids at school that go to public school and having conversations with, you know, counselors and things on campus that are more trained in that type of field, would that be able to alleviate some of the issues and be able to catch some of these lunatics earlier on to be like, they don't function as a normal person? And I don't know, it just really sends my mind reeling thinking about all those things. And obviously there's information about the case that's really interesting. I think it's all really well handled. You should definitely check it out, because I think it is really well put together. And I think it's a really fascinating conversation about a really horrible period in our society. Have you seen Conversations with the Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this was a really great documentary. It really included a lot of great things that I think made it so much more impactful. And if you get a chance to check this one out, I think you'll really enjoy it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.